have opening remarks, followed by some other remarks. We'll have a presentation right after that. Then we'll have best practices and lessons learned sharing, which will take place behind me as you see the podium set. Right after that, we have, of course, some experts with us, a panel of esteemed experts. Right after that, we'll have one last presentation, closing remarks, and then we'll head to lunch. Lunch will take place on the rooftop. Now, what has gathered us here? Basically, we want to make sure that we understand what's going on with our different higher learning institutions in Rwanda and how to implement standardized digital literacy programs. Now, I remember yesterday, Damien, the CEO of ICDL Foundation, talking about the fact that kids these days, teenagers these days, the youth in general, is very aware when it comes to using social media and recreational, they have recreational literacy skills to them, like they've mastered them. But when it comes to the workplace and knowing how to use those for the workplace, there's still a challenge there. We're going to address that as well. Having all students graduate with an internationally recognized digital skills certification to be ready to join the workforce. Now, without further ado, let me not take much of your time. Let me invite Dr. Rose Mukankomeje, who's Director General of at the Higher Education Council, for opening remarks. Doctor.
Good morning, everybody. And I don't know if I have to keep this one or if I can move it, but being in education, I think I have to respect rules and regulations. So thank you for inviting us. I'm here representing Honorable Minister of State in charge of ICT and TVET. And she was so excited to be with you, but at the last minute she has been called for another meeting or other duties. So now I was supposed to be here as a participant. Now I'm going to open this meeting on her behalf, and then I will participate. Thank you. So Minister of Education is very happy and thanks you for inviting us to be part of this important topic, namely digital literacy. We need to take the lead and inspire more young people, but maybe we have to start from ourselves. But here we are here for the students who are in charge. So both student and academic staff, they have to access digital literacy programs that will enable them to understand better the great opportunity they can provide. As we contribute to building future generations, it is important to prepare them to address challenges we face today and increase their readiness for future digital economic transformation. We are always still witnessing, specifically myself, how our students, specifically those who are senior 6 leavers, how they are illiterate. When they are applying for a job, for scholarship, because we are in charge of it, I can get a call. Can I help me? And give me my username, my password. So you have to start by explaining to them, which means if a student who has finished his senior 6, it is a challenge for them. So the responsibility we are going to have is to start training them when they arrive at the university. But I think we have to make sure that when they finish their senior 6, they are also digital literate. Some of us can confess, and we know very well how there was a time when we used to have these ATM, and they have given a card to go and access the funds. So an old man or a very old lady asked to a kid, "Can you help me?" Giving the password and money, the next day there is nothing because they don't know how to use it. So, and as we have started distributing digital tools to our people, it is important they learn how to manipulate them. Without basic digital skills, it is becoming increasingly difficult to participate effectively in the digital economy and society. And without advanced skills, we cannot move forward, discovering, for example, new ways to address the challenges through technology. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID pandemic has significantly affected all aspects of national life, including education. The disruption of in-person classes has exposed more than ever the gap in digital access, skills, and online learning for all children. To deal with this challenge, digital skills are a must. There is a saying that in the midst of every crisis lies an opportunity. You can agree with me that there is a lot of commitment and determination in the fast and capable way in which many teachers, students, and educational institutions have adopted despite challenges encountered. We should learn from this experience and seize the opportunity to continue to modernize our education systems and strengthen their resilience. Today, we need to adopt innovative technology solutions to support education for all. The application of cutting-edge technologies such as e-learning will enable us to bypass the challenges of existing modes of teaching and learning, especially to meet the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution and the need to adapt to the 21st century technologies. We have the opportunity to re-engage as high learning institutions in the cause of youth education so that they are prepared for these century digital requirements. Distinguished guests, the government of Rwanda has placed great importance on improving the access and the quality of our education system. This is formulated in our country's Vision 2050, as well as in associated implementation plans, such as the National Strategy for Transformation and the Education Sector Strategic Plan. I'm sure if I came in your respective institution and ask a question to your student, what is provided in our NST1 towards education sector? I'm sure I'm not going to get more than 20%. So if we have those good documents and plans, our kids, they have to know them and embrace them and be able to benefit from what we are doing for them. It is therefore the crucial time to accelerate the digital literacy program and make it a basic tool in all education programs in our respective faculties. If Rwanda has chosen to place ICT at the core of our education delivery chain, it is because we believe in its power to improve teaching and learning in order to contribute to the quality education we want. We need to focus on equipping our young people with digital skills they need to enable them to be prepared for the social economic development of our country. This will not only include the need for a strong emphasis on digital literacy in our education systems, with a focus on collaborative learning and problem solving, but also for young people to be flexible and adaptable. It requires the transfer of soft skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. Dear participant, global education will continue to rely on technology more than ever, as more learners will continue to learn remotely. This is set to continue for future generations. We have the responsibility to support schools to implement teaching and learning activities using technology not only for today's situation, but also in addressing future needs. To reach there, we need a high-performing digital education system. It requires adequate infrastructure, connectivity, digital equipment, and institutional digital readiness. You will tell me some of us were lacking them. But I think, not only I think, the government will keep supporting these through digital transformation plans for all types of education institutions with solutions, including some in pipeline, such as the Smart Education Project, provision of laptops, and teacher training. Ladies and gentlemen, the future education in digital age depends on all of us. I'm sure many of your ideas will inspire us on how to make education truly ready for the digital transformation. The time for action is now. I take this opportunity to call upon each of you to take the lead in your respective institutions to integrate digital literacy in your respective programs. During the COVID, when it started, we have had a lot of meetings and see how we can accommodate ourselves. And I think lessons are there. It is possible. What we have to do is to continue and to build on what we have. And let me thank ICDL Africa team that supported the organization of this event today, and with the support of the Ministry of ICT and Innovations, and of course, MINEDUC teams. Once again, I thank you, and I wish you productive discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have further remarks from Rodrigue Ruhasha, who's a digital analyst at the Ministry of ICT. Rodrigue.
CEO, Director General, Head of the Higher Learning Institution, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good morning. It's my honor to stand here today on behalf of our Permanent Secretary of Ministry of ICT and Innovation, who wished to be with us today but couldn't manage it. And I'm pleased to convey this remark on his behalf today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, advances in technology worldwide and its application in corporate organization and government institution in particular is creating a strong demand for high-skilled workforce. The government of Rwanda has invested required ICT infrastructure, tools, but however, the lack of adequate digital literacy skills hinders the pace of adoption of digital solution in government. Low digital literacy level translate into inadequate ability to funding and consuming information and creating content. As if that was not good enough, the government of Rwanda also introduced a number of strategies to bridge that gap. As part of those strategies, the National Strategy for Transformation recommends attainment of 60% of adult and 100% of youth trained in digital literacy by the year 2024. Approved government institution rationalization strategy relies heavily on fast-tracking digitization and automation effort. Current jobs now entail the use of technology, and 70% job requires professional digital skills for productivity. The assessment conducted within public institutions revealed the skills gap and mismatch within the public sector workforce. Only 1% were able to attain above 75% standard pass mark. As part of those efforts, we've partnered with the ICDA since 2015, and therefore about 13 ICDL accredited test centers were established. Assessment conducted on more than 3,000 public servants, and the Digital Literacy for Workforce program was approved by Cabinet recently. The different partners are mobilized to support digital literacy for workforce. Here we can say, for example, Smart Africa Digital Academy, GIZ support, to name a few of them. 4 accredited test centers were contracted by government to implement digital literacy for workforce. Training is taking place at institutional premises instead of hiring hotel rooms in order to cut costs, training costs. To conclude, dear DGs, CEO, distinguished guests, allow me to emphasize the government commitment in supporting various efforts by different stakeholders to embrace this agenda that aims at bridging the digital divide among workforce, and therefore encourage higher learning institutions, both public and private, to ensure that they train and produce graduates digitally ready to join workforce to increase productivity and the economy in the end. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Rodrigue. Appreciate that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me, with his permission, invite the CEO of ICDL Foundation, Damien O'Sullivan, for a presentation. Damien.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, guest of honor, distinguished guests. Just while we're waiting for the presentation to be loaded, I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking you for joining us here this morning. This is a very important meeting for all of us. I am the head of the ICDL Global Organization, and ICDL is based in Ireland. Our office is in Dublin, but we work all over the world. But what is very special about this meeting excuse me, is it's a partnership between the Ministry of Education and Ministry of ICT, and with support from ICDL. And that partnership across government is very special. When you have Ministry of Education working closely with Ministry of ICT and Innovation, then you can be sure that the agenda is of the highest importance to government. So coming from outside, I certainly like to recognize the fact that this is a very strong message from the government in terms of the importance of this issue. ICDL is therefore honoured to be working so closely with the government, and you'll have heard some examples of that, and I'll share more with you. For those of you that may be not so familiar with ICDL, what we emphasize is, as we state on the slide, that ICDL is an international organization dedicated to raising digital skills standards in the workforce, education and society. And what's important about that is that dedication. This is the only thing we do. We're not a technology company involved in training people in the use of our own technology. We're not a general education organization looking at a whole diverse portfolio. We are dedicated to this area. We have been established over 25 years ago, and from the very first day until today, our job is simply to focus on digital skills. How do we ensure that our young people, that our workforce, that our society has the skills needed to perform in their lives, and more particularly in the workforce? Are we able to share the presentation, please? Okay. The establishment of ICDL Africa and coming to Rwanda as we did at the beginning of 2015 was a very important stepping stone, very important development for the ICDL global organization. Prior to 2015, we weren't ourselves on the soil of Africa. We were working from outside, dealing with partners. But it was very apparent to us that for ICDL to work, that we needed to be here. And as we looked around Africa, trying to understand where best to locate our head office for Africa, we were faced with a very difficult choice in the beginning, as we looked at many interesting countries, interesting cities, looking at where other international organizations were located. But as we were developing our criteria, we first looked at ourselves, and I was telling this story yesterday to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Kigali, and nice to see you again this morning. Thank you for coming. We thought about our own location in Ireland and our headquarters in Asia in Singapore. And we started to think about what made those locations so successful for us. And ultimately, it's about the teams that we were able to build, but the culture that comes with that team. And it goes back to the nature of those countries. So in the case of Ireland, where I'm from, it's a small country on the edge of Europe, has been transformed over the last 60, 70 years because of education and because of the adoption of technology. And there are more Irish people outside of Ireland than there are in Ireland. And there are a very high percentage of the population of the United States claim Irish heritage. And as you know, the current president of the United States is very much a son of Ireland, and his Irishness is very, very apparent. But as a country, Ireland looks outward, and our key natural resources are people. So we have a very strong education system and a very strong commitment to the use of digital technology to develop the economy. When you think of Singapore, similarly, it's a very small country, even smaller than Ireland. It's effectively a city-state. Its key resource is its people. It has invested heavily in its education system, invests continuously in its workforce, and has adopted digital technology as well. So we thought, if we're coming to Africa, Where can we find a country that's like Ireland and Singapore, that maybe is small enough that it looks outward rather than inward, that is a nation that forms partnerships with others across the region, that is focused on its people and its education, and is looking to digital technology to develop the economy. And very quickly, Rwanda came to the top of the list. And once I came, in the end of 2014, came to Kigali, experienced the city, met people, we were very sure of our decision. And the experience since then has been so positive that we're very proud of the fact that ICL Africa is headquartered in Rwanda, in Kigali, and I come here at least 4 times a year, and it feels, as an Irish person, that I'm coming home. I'm coming to Ireland in Africa. And the key to the success that we're having across the region, across the 34 countries that we're operating in Africa at the moment, is not just about ICDL and what it can do, and I'll talk more about that, but the Rwanda aspect of it is really important to us. So countries across Africa look to Rwanda, for example, for best practice. And our collaboration with the government here, with the Ministry of ICT and the Ministry of Education, is very enhancing of our credibility. And the examples that we can show about how ICDL is being used to develop the workforce of Rwanda is an example that is of keen interest to countries, not just in East Africa, but in West or Southern Africa, as people look to how we respond to the various challenges of adoption of digital technology. Clicker, maybe not. There we go. Okay. The ICDL program very much focuses on the digital skills of non-technical people. So we're not concerned about producing computer scientists. We're not competing with institutes of higher learning that are offering degree programs in computing and computer science. We're concerned about the 95% of the workforce that will not be employed as IT specialists. So our focus is on starting with basic digital skills that everybody needs to perform effectively in the workforce. So our starting program is called ICDL Workforce. It's described as digital skills for employability and productivity. So these are the set of skills that our young people need leaving the education system, entering the world of work. These are the skills that employers expect young people to have, irrespective of their academic track. Digital skills are required by all of our graduates. So we focus on the basics, not of using a smartphone for entertainment, but of using a PC as you would be expected to do in the world of work, using common applications that are required in public sector, in the private sector, in terms of presentations and spreadsheets. New areas like teamwork, remote work, where we learned very strong and immediate lessons arising from the pandemic. Aspects like cybersecurity, which are critical to the safe use of technology. We build on that with our ICDL professional program, where we look at more specialized needs and more advanced digital skills. Again, not for ICT graduates, but for all graduates, but maybe in particular areas. So if we have students studying business and finance, then they should be looking at modules such as financial spreadsheets, data analytics. Today, data analytics is not for data specialists. Yes, you will need those specialists at a point, but if you're in a finance role, you need to understand data analysis. You need to be able to use the data that you have within your system to better understand your organization, your performance as a business. 2 particular programs we put in our entrepreneurial track. So we have a module on digital marketing and e-commerce. E-commerce is the latest one, just finished in the last number of weeks. And the purpose of these modules and the relevance of them to your students is about preparing them entering the workforce where there may not be a job for themselves, where they may have to create their own job. So we want to develop entrepreneurial thinking within our young people. So irrespective, again, of their academic track. And it's equally relevant for students in vocational education. Whatever your skill set, how do you market yourself? If you have a business idea, how do you develop that? So modules like digital marketing and e-commerce, in combination with some of the more technical modules, prepares young people to use the digital technology in a way that enhances their own employability, but also, for some of them, enable them to start their own business. And the latest program we call ICDL Insights. Again, not designed to be very technical. We describe it as digital understanding for managers. So it covers areas like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things. For managers who need to understand what the concept is, we're not expecting them to be technical. We're not expecting them to create AI applications, but we're giving them an understanding, giving them a literacy so that they can engage with specialists, that they can consider how new and emerging technologies might impact on their own organization or their own business. So the ICL program is quite diverse, and when you think about your own institutions and the type of faculties, the courses that you offer, we're confident that there are a set of ICL modules that will fit with every domain that you're operating in. You have a document on your table. It's the ICL references and endorsements, and that gives you a very clear sense of how ICDL is used around the world. But I'll just give you a sense of it. We need to go back to the first one, which is Europe. As I mentioned at the beginning, that ICDL began 25 years ago, and it began in Europe, and it was quite quickly adopted by institutions, by governments across Europe. So ICDL is still used in Ireland, in UK, in France, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, supported by the European Commission. And is as relevant today as it was 25 years ago, that we still have a huge problem in Europe in terms of lack of digital skills. The European Commission estimates that only about 55% of the population have very basic digital skills. Not the skills for the world of work, but basic skills to engage with government services, to access products, information online. In terms of the level of digital skill equivalent to ICDL, the level is about 30%. The next one. Across Asia, as I mentioned, we've been in Singapore, working closely with the government of Singapore for over 10 years. What I appreciated about the approach of the Singapore government is they didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They were looking at a skills framework for their workforce. They realized that digital skills were transversal skills, so relevant to every industry sector. They wanted to have a standard approach. And after thinking about developing something from themselves, when we met with them and shared with them what we had been doing and what we were offering, they very quickly decided that it would be more appropriate for them to adopt ICDL as the standard, to use ICDL modules in their framework for their employability skills. So ICDL has been used in that way for 10 years or more by the Singaporeans. What is key about Singapore, and again it's similar to what I was explaining about Ireland and also Rwanda, is the thinking. The agency that we began working with was called the Workforce Development Authority, which sounds like a very typical government agency. The name is obvious, the Workforce Development Authority. But about 5 years ago, they changed the name to a name that doesn't sound like a government name. So the Workforce Development Authority became Skills Future Singapore. Now that sounds more like a startup name than a government agency, but it's about the way they think. Skills Future Singapore, about skills for the future. And it's still involved in the same activity. How do they invest in the workforce to develop the digital skills that they need continuously? And it's across all areas of industry. ICDL also in partnership in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Philippines, in Malaysia. We'll move on, please. In the Americas also, ICDL recognized by the International Society for Technology and Education, by the American Council of Education, and also across Central and Southern America. And again, Joseph, yeah, thank you. In Africa, we have examples. We're working with governments in Kenya, in Benin, in Uganda, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Senegal. And again, it's about looking at how do we provide opportunities for young people and for people in the workforce to develop their digital skill. And next. And in Rwanda, as has been mentioned, these are some of the key relationships and partnerships that we have, and this is just the start. I hope when I come back later in the year and next year that I'll need 2 slides to represent what we're doing in Rwanda. But the partnership with the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, with the Ministry of Education, also with the Ministry of Public Service and Labour. And it all flows from the realization of the government, and it comes from the leadership, it comes from the President. We need a stronger digital capability within the public sector. Investing in the technology, investing in devices, investing in systems and connectivity. To be honest, that's the easy part. It may take finance and may take time, but it's an easier thing to do. When you look at the performance of the users of technology, that's the greater problem. So as was explained earlier, we conducted assessments in partnership with the ministry across the public sector using ICDL assessment questions to measure the performance of individuals across different agencies and ministries. And the message was the same. The skill level isn't good enough. So you will not get a return on your investment in technology if you don't invest in the people. People power technology. It's not about electricity. It's not about silicon. People power technology. You can spend $500,000 on a new system for your organization, but if you don't spend some money on investing in the users and ensuring that they have the skills to use it, then it will become a very expensive mistake. We had early adopters of ICDL in Rwanda, and the one that stands out within government is the Rwanda Revenue Authority. And in our experience around the world, when you look at governments, you look at one of the key agencies, the one that's often the most advanced and the most forward-thinking is the Revenue Authority. And the Revenue Authority, we had a similar experience in Ireland, are the ones that are always looking at technology. It's all about, obviously, the collection of taxes, but using systems, making it easy for business to engage with the authority, making it easy for citizens to engage with the Revenue Authority. So the Revenue Authority had already made big investments in technology, but realized that the skill level wasn't good enough. So the Revenue Authority adopted ICDL internally, and this happened even before the whole government policy was rolled out. The Revenue Authority themselves said, this is what we need. Everybody in the Revenue Authority must achieve the level of skill as defined by ICDL. And we've had examples, as you can see, with the National Bank, we have the Post Office, and some of these partners now involved in the government project to offer ICDL across government. And the idea of the National Postal Service, not just adopting ICDL for itself, but saying, no, we have capability to provide skills development outside of ePositive. So the Postal Service is an ICDL test centre, and it's involved in the project, so other parts of government going to the Postal Service to be trained and certified in ICDL. That's a very different activity from delivering the mail. That's an organisation that thinks like a Singaporean organisation. Isn't just thinking about, are we delivering the mail on schedule? You'll hear later from the examples with university, mentioned University of Kigali and University of Tourism Business, an early adopter. And they're just two examples, and they'll share their experience. But we also have partnership with organizations like AIMS, African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, supporting a teacher training project. We have another teacher training project supported by GIZ, the German age agency, and we have a new collaboration with Smart Africa. And Smart Africa supported the government with implementing ICDL in one particular sector, and that will grow. But these are just the first steps. When you look at it, to me it looks very impressive, but it's just the first step. This is about leadership. So these are the early adopters saying, yes, we get it, we understand what we need to do, we understand that our workforce needs to be supported. But the message back to you today is you're thinking ahead. You're not thinking about today's workforce. You're thinking about tomorrow's workforce. You're thinking about your students. Maybe they're graduating this year. If they want a job in the public sector, goes back to the role of the Ministry of Public Service and Labour, they will tell you your graduates will have to have an internationally recognised digital skills certificate. If it says ICDL, they'll recognise it instantly. So, to get a job in the public sector, that's what you need. So what does the future workforce look like? We'll move on. So that, so far, is just to give you a sense, what is ICDL, where do we work, how do we approach things, and what are we doing here? I want to share with you maybe just some thoughts on what we're seeing as common challenges around the world. And these are not new. So we've been talking about these three issues for years when we engage with government. A lot has changed in the last 2 years, but the issues are the same, but just magnified. So we talk about what we describe as the new digital divide. Digital divide as a concept or a term has been around for maybe more than 20 years. And in the early stage, digital divide meant those who had access to digital services and devices and those that didn't. So you were either on the right side or the wrong side. If you were on the wrong side, you had no digital. We talk about the new digital divide, and that's between those that have digital lifestyle skills and digital workplace skills. So many people, and particularly young people, have digital lifestyle skills, and we heard about it earlier. Ask them to show you the latest social media tool, and they're always moving on to the next one. They're embarrassed if they're using the same one as old people like us. So you'll find very few young people around the world using Facebook. They were doing that 10, 15 years ago. When it comes to entertainment, when it comes to connecting with their friends, sharing online, yes, they have digital lifestyle skills. But as we heard from the DG, asking them to submit something online, an application for funding, etc., they can't do it. So that's the key divide now, between those that have the skills that will make them employable and productive in the workplace versus accessing, YouTube. And that relates also to the third one, which is the digital native fallacy. So I'm skip the second one, I'll come back to that. The digital native fallacy is just in the thinking sometimes of policymakers. Oh, we don't need to worry about young people, sure, they're growing up with this. They're digital natives. They have the skills or they'll teach themselves. But they don't, and they won't, and they can't. I've seen it in my own family. Children going through school, high school, going into university, coming home saying, "Oh, Dad, can you help me with Excel?" Or they have to do a PowerPoint. You think, well, PowerPoint is the easiest thing in the world to use. And you think if you're 18 years old, they should be able to pick it up like that. But do they? No. Can they? No. It needs to be taught. Perception and reality, if we just move on. That's really the overarching issue, Joseph. And it's the difference in perception of skill level and the reality of those skill levels. And it cuts across all sectors. That problem of the difference between our perception of skills and the reality is what was exposed by the assessment that we did in the public sector. And it's universal. This is not an African problem. This is not a Rwandan problem. This is everywhere. This is a problem in Ireland, in Singapore, in Germany. Everybody thinks they have more digital skills than they actually do. And it's particularly a problem within management level or leadership level. Sometimes the most resistance we would get is from management saying, we don't need ICDL. Look around our office. Everybody has a PC. They're all working away. Well, as one of the ministers here told me, they might be working on Excel, but they have a calculator beside the PC. They're using Excel to lay out a nice, pretty table, but they're doing the calculation on the calculator. Now, it's an extreme example, perhaps, but the reality is, just because you have a PC on your desk doesn't mean you're productive. It doesn't mean you're as effective or efficient as you should be. And as we found from the assessment that we did, the skill level was in the 20% range. Very few rose to the 75% level that we established as our pass mark. And you can see on the chart, so the outer ring, the orange ring, that's the perception when we ask people to rate your competence in spreadsheets or use of general digital skills, word processing. Everybody said I'm either good or very good. When we measured it, we said, right, sit down at that PC and perform the tasks. You can see the blue bar. That's the reality. So our challenge is to change reality, not change the perception. We need to bring the reality up to meet that perception. So we need to invest in the development of digital skills. The pandemic over the last couple of years, we've learned a lot. So what we were faced with was lockdown and then the challenge of continuity. Business continuity, education continuity, healthcare continuity, public administration continuity. How do we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing? Send everybody home with a laptop and data and say, keep doing your job. But it didn't work. We also had the public health actions. How do we test, trace, treat, vaccinate, communicate at massive scale? The solution obviously was digital technology. Everything was about rapid digital transformation. Doing things over the course of a few months that would have taken us years to do if we didn't have that pressure, that urgency. But the focus was on, as it had to be, in the urgency of it, the focus was on devices, on applications, on connectivity. But how many institutions in the education sector were able to continue with teaching and learning? how effective was that teaching and learning? So we've seen, again, across the world and also here, we've seen where the skill level was strong, that there was education continuity, that the teachers could teach, that the students could learn, if they had, yes, the device, the connectivity, but if they had, most importantly, digital skills. So what was exposed over the pandemic is the digital skills gap in our students, in our teachers, in our workers, and in our management. And I'm sure across the cabinet, I'm sure there was a problem. How do we get all our ministers online for a cabinet meeting? It was certainly a problem in Ireland. I would imagine it was a problem here. How many members of our cabinet, how many of our esteemed ministers in Ireland have digital skills? And if they were joining a cabinet meeting from their home, well, maybe they had somebody beside them helping them out. Hopefully no breach of cabinet confidentiality with a 16-year-old helping their father or mother participate in the cabinet meeting. But what we've learned is that what we had been talking about before, as ICDL, what we had been talking about before the pandemic, was heightened. Hopefully we're now coming to the end of it, and we're now thinking about, well, what does the future work? We'll never go back to the way it was before. So what will be different? What this chart is showing, so this is from McKinsey, one of the advisory firms, they do research. The basic message of this is that there will be an acceleration in the change in the workforce. So it's showing the share of the workforce that may need to transition to new jobs. So this was going to happen anyway. So we take the example on the left in the United States. Before the pandemic, they were estimating that 7.9% of the workforce would have to transition to a new job by 2030. And because of what happened with COVID, that's been accelerated and increased, so now it's up to 10.1%. And you can see on the bottom that translates to 17 million people. So 17 million people in the workforce in the US, they're estimating, would need to transition to jobs in new occupations. Now, it doesn't matter how accurate this is. It's just a message. And I think we can all accept, yes, this is the trend. There will be a trend towards jobs in new occupations. You know, digital marketer isn't an occupation that existed 10, 15 years ago. Data analyst, someone who specializes in Internet of Things or artificial intelligence. All of these new things create new jobs. But the question is, who's going to do those jobs? And what happens if you're in the workforce and you're faced with the fact that your job is going to change? Because what's interesting is, to me, is not just all of the new jobs, and you will cater for those. Yes, the higher learning institute sector across the world can respond, can get the brightest students, can create data scientists. But what about the rest? So in the next slide, again, the detail doesn't matter, it's just the impression. So what it's showing is the ratio between human and machine working hours. And again, it's talking about that shifting. So you can see, you know, the 2022 numbers, say at the bottom, when you're talking about information and data processing. It goes from 47% to 62% in favor of machines. So more and more, it will be machines doing the information and data processing rather than the human. But across the different examples, it's about the shift between what the human will do and what the machine will do. But the basic message is all jobs will change. All jobs will not be eliminated, but the job will require more and more use of technology. There is practically no job where you think this person won't need to have any understanding of digital, of a device. You know, we see it in retail. You see it in restaurants. You go to Singapore, you see how far they are ahead, even of Ireland. There's no paper and pen. Probably you place your own order. You'll either use your own phone on QR code and then place your order, or there will be a tablet on the table. But all that goes behind that, the processing of that information and payment and all of that. If you are a chef and you want to open your own restaurant, it doesn't matter how good you are at cooking. If you're running a restaurant, it's a business. If we take University of Tourism and Business, you think about tourism. How many people working in the tourism industry need digital skills? Real question is, how many don't need digital skills? When you check in, you know, most frustrating part of a stay in a hotel is check-in. You're standing there and there's a lot of clicking on the keyboard. I would love someday to go behind the desk and just see what type of application is this that takes so much clicking to get me just my room. I just want my key card. But across all sectors, it's about that shift. So that shift is happening. But because of the experience of COVID, it's going to happen even more. So we move on. So what we've learned now across the world, what we've learned here, what government recognizes, what educators recognize, is we need increased focus and investment on digital skill. This skills gap is front and center. You don't have to go looking for it. You have seen it. You see it in your own staff, you see it in your students because of the experience over the last 2 years. There's a grave concern about the current workforce. As we've been talking about, most jobs need digital. So the government thinking about how do we skill, reskill, upskill. The government project here about the public sector workforce. Absolute laser focus. This has to happen. 80,000 public sector workers need to have digital skills certification, and they're going to use ICDL. And we know how much the leadership likes to measure performance. So this will happen. It is happening. But now it's about the future workforce. Young people leaving education not job ready. But the beauty of it, you doing this, yes, you will enhance their employability. But if you started in year one, you'll also enhance their learning experience. You can use more and more digital technology in your institution if your students have digital skills. And at the end of it, if they have ICDL, they go out with something in addition to your academic qualification or vocational qualification. They'll also have something that says to an employer, this person can use technology. This person understands cyber risks. This person will be productive. But it needs to be done in a formal way. You don't just focus on how are we going to get a laptop for every student. Give them the laptop and let them off. This has to be done in a formal way. So very briefly then, just to finish up, ICDL is a solution to that problem. ICDL is a program that you can use. So we're not coming and saying, we'll solve your problem. This is your problem. Your problem is how do you ensure your staff, your lecturers, your academic, non-academic staff, and your students have the skills they need. So our job is to give you something that will help you solve that problem. If we can go back one, please. Yeah. So we talk about the ICDL advantage in terms of these 4 quadrants. So the program, we talked about that. You saw the breadth of it. It will be relevant to everybody in your institution. Second part is our platform. It's called Skillsbox. It's our platform to deliver learning content and the assessments and certification tests. And it's fully online. And that has enabled our institutions to continue with ICDL. It has enabled AIMS to continue with the project of teacher training and the GIZ project because it's fully online. It allowed the Rwanda Management Institution to continue with ICDL even in lockdown. So the platform is a key advantage. Third one is people. It's about the fact that we have ICDL teams on the ground. We have a network of test centers. So this is the approach we take. So we don't sit ourselves and say, how are we going to do all this? We do it in partnership. And we have strategic partnerships with government, with intergovernmental organizations like Smart Africa, with the Francophonie organization, with agencies such as GIZ. We've had support from funders like MasterCard Foundation and many more. The UN has supported ICDL initiatives around the world. The World Bank has. So it's all about people. It doesn't matter how good the program is or the platform, it's about having the people. And the last one is about the perspective we have as ICDL. The approach that we take, our thinking. We have seen across Africa, across Asia, across Europe, many projects failed. We have seen many high-profile launches of digital skilling projects. We've seen technology companies come and say, this is brilliant, we're going to give you a platform, you can train 1 million people. It's going to be great. It never is. It's not about the content. We view certification not as a product that we can sit in Ireland and deliver to you across our platform and say, here, there's the platform. We view certification as a service. So we're in a service business, not a product business. This is about certification as a service. Because it's a process that involves people. It's not about the technology. It's not about Skillsbox. It's about the people. And that's why, with that thinking, if it's a service, you can't be global in a service industry. You have to be local. We're global in the sense of it's a common standard. It's a shared standard. We're all doing the same thing in a methodology that works, but it has to be local. And our perspective, our philosophy of being global is not to be global like Apple or Samsung or Mercedes. When you think about Apple, what national identity does it have? It's American. When you think of Samsung, you think, well, that's Korean. I might be able to buy it here, but as a brand, it's Korean. Or you think about all of the big German brands. Mercedes, BMW, Siemens, SAP. Part of their value, brand value, is their German engineering and the credibility of German engineering. So they're not global brands. They're German brands available globally, recognized globally. Facebook, Google, Apple, American, available globally. With ICDL, we don't want to be Irish or European, available in Africa. We want ICDL to be as African as it is European. We want ICDL to be Rwandan as much as it is Irish. So our objective with ICDL is not, as I say, sitting in Ireland with a master plan to dominate the world of digital skills. It's for it to be here and to have our people here, to work with you here. And you help make ICDL relevant for Rwanda. And you, in partnership with colleagues across Africa, make ICDL relevant for Africa. And it's happening. And it's happening to the point where now we're doing content development here. Not just for Rwanda, not just for Africa, but for our global distribution. We've hired e-learning developers here. We've hired software developers, and we're looking for more here to work on our skills box platform, linking in with our team in Ireland as well. Why? Because we can get the competence here. But also, we want African thinking. The next module, or the next update to a module. What's the African perspective? Maybe it's going to be the same as the way we think about it in Ireland. Maybe it'll be the same as the way they think about it in Singapore. But we want the voice. So being global and local is key to our perspective and is key to the advantage. And the last aspect, and it's related, is how we work. It's about capacity building. So we don't deliver ICDL, you deliver it. So we support you, we build capacity, we do a lot of train the trainer to get things up and running. But we don't come and do that and then go home. We're here, we're staying. So it's also about quality assurance. So quality assurance in a supportive way, but also with a degree of scrutiny. So we want to support you so that you maintain the quality of ICDL. But we also check. We keep an eye, we look at the data, we look at performance, pass rates. Why? Why should a young person or a public sector worker in Rwanda get a certificate with ICDL on the top that isn't as valuable as the one that they would get in Ireland or Singapore? If the standard isn't maintained, then it won't be as valuable. So for us, the credibility of ICDL is key. So quality assurance is key. Auditing is key. So that your students get ICDL, and the government here will say, yeah, we know ICDL is credible, we know it's high quality, we know that when they come out of your institution with an ICDL, that they've met the standard. There was no cheating. There was nobody helping the student to pass the test. There was no shortage of support for the training. It was done well, and you met the standard. So capacity building and quality assurance go hand in hand. And ultimately, it's about saying, our job is to help you succeed in upskilling your young people and upskilling your staff. So to conclude, the message of ICDL is quite simple. Move on. If you're thinking about, is ICDL the right solution for your institution, the answer, and if we flick through please, why ICDL? The answer is because it works. Next. Can we advance the slide, please? Too much. Back one. That is the summary. So what I've spent quite a long time talking about, it's as simple as this. ICDL, it works. We don't take on projects that fail. We refuse projects if we don't think that the various partners are committed to doing it the way we know works. So, why ICDL? Because ICDL works. And one of the key reasons why it works is because it's all we do. This is what we're good at, because it's the only thing we do. We've been doing it for 25 years, and if we were bad at it, we wouldn't be here anymore. And when you look at the book, the examples from around the world, it works. And we've had approaches from government, not here, but in other places, where they say, oh, we want to do this big thing. And we talk about what their plan is, and we say, no, this is not for us. We won't start a project unless we're convinced that it will work. So when somebody invited us to come and certify 1 million people, and we started to say, okay, well, how do you want to do this? And then we realized, this is not going to work. This will be like one of those technology company initiatives where, oh, it's about a platform. Everybody will log in. No, thank you. We do it this way because it works. And the last point, it works because we're here. Our job is to help you ensure that ICDL works for you. So if you take that leap, are you taking a risk in adopting ICDL? No, you're not. You can look around and see who else has been doing it. You can look around the world and seeing who else has been doing it. So is this a safe choice? Absolutely. But most importantly is we are here for you to make sure it works. We're putting our credibility in your hands. We're not going to let you fail. We're not going to have a bad ICL story coming out of your institution. That's bad for us as well as bad for you. So with that, you're going to hear examples from other people now, but the basic message is this policy from government is critical to the future of Rwanda. The leadership sees digital technology as transforming Rwanda. And you've seen it yourself. Every time I come back, I see more and more development. But the obstacle is not technology, the obstacle is skills. So the government is committed. What the government wants is to make sure that young people have the skills they need. And our job is to help you achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damien. Now, moving forward, we have Peter Maina, who will be coming to give us some pointers about the implementation of ICDL. Peter.
Guest of honor, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be part of this meeting. I'm here to look at how we have assisted or how we have worked with academic institutions to implement ICDL program. And I would be happy first to recognize the presence of AIMS, Professor Sam. Thank you for being here. We have worked with him. So whatever I will be talking about here basically is something that has been done by AIMS. It's something that has been done by Dr. Kariste from UTB. So I have case studies here that will basically be confirming that what we are talking about here is possible in the universities and higher learning institutions. I think I can remove this. I think when you have the microphone, COVID disappears. So, yeah, I want to look at, if Sam, you could help me, some few items that I will have here in terms of how we work with the academic institutions to look at how ICDL would fit in what they are currently doing. And the first item that I will be looking at is on mapping of what majority of the universities and higher learning institutions are offering in terms of ICT courses. And then we go through that and we look at how does that content map into ICDL program. And with kind of information or experience we've had with AIMS and UTB, it's very clear that majority of the institutions have been offering bits of courses and call it ICT courses. But when students are leaving the universities, they are actually not having the necessary skills to be able to do what the workplace and wishes them to be able to do. So I'll be looking at very simple cases of what some institutions are offering and look at some modules that we have in ICDL, like documents, that is what we would call word processing in some institutions. In other institutions, we are having a course called ICT applications or computer introduction to computers that has bits of word processing, bits of Excel, bits of PowerPoint, and then by the time you look at what the students are living with, it's a mixture of something that is worse than, what is the worst thing that you can think of in terms of a mixture? Sir? mixture. Anyway, let's look at what we have here. If we could go through this, some please, just a minute. After that, we look at the accreditation process. When we finish mapping of the courses that universities are offering the students, we then go through accreditation process. It's basically to make sure that our partners are adequately equipped with the resources that are required for them to implement ICDL successfully. We have talked about, Damien has mentioned about quality, 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 because ICDL is where it is 25 years and above because of the quality that we ensure is ensured through the implementation. Then I will briefly talk about certification costs. I met with one of the principals from an IPRC. I will not mention the name. And the question here was, is ICDL expensive? Isn't ICDL very expensive? And I think Professor Sam and UTB, I'm using these because they are case examples that I've worked with. They will tell you that this is the most affordable program that you can think of based on the skills that people are getting. After that, it's good to also think about what are the other opportunities that the universities or the higher learning institutions may have beyond just training the students that they have in their universities. So let me go through the mapping of ICT courses that are offered in universities against what we have as ICDL. I just picked some few modules from random institutions that I have visited, and I looked at word processing. This is using Microsoft Word. I looked at the other module on spreadsheets and then presentations. I looked at what people are covering, and if I don't want to go through the objectives one by one, but if you could read through, you will appreciate that some of the things that we are doing in our schools. For example, I will go to objective number 4 in word processing in a university, and somebody is being told how to create a folder in word processing. That should tell you already there is a problem somewhere. Because a student who went through introduction to computers, already they have done a module like computer and online essentials. They already know how to work with folders and organize files in a computer. And then you are here in talking of word processing and you are talking folders. There is a problem somewhere, right? We have our module objectives on the right there. I said I will not go through each one of them. Maybe if we could go through spreadsheets. Yeah, these are some of the other objectives maybe. And then spreadsheets, there is something that caught my eye somewhere. Identify applications of spreadsheets. That's objective number 1. And objective number 2 is identify spreadsheet software applications. My friends, this is in a university. Is there a problem? Or we don't? We have a big problem. Because the approach that we are using, there should be some consistency in what we are doing, in what we are training. And at this point, I want to mention that the way we have implemented the AIMS project under Professor Sam, we actually looked at the UNESCO ICT competency framework for ICT teachers. And I did the same thing. I remember presenting this to AIMS. I did the same mapping. And they realized actually ICDL is having more than what UNESCO is having in their framework. And that is how Professor Yara said for all the STEM teachers that we are having in over 34 districts in Rwanda, we are going to train them in ICDL. And I do believe with more than 3,000 teachers already trained, the impact is being felt in Rwanda. Let's look at presentations, Sam. Okay. Okay, fine. It's okay. We can leave because I wanted to just have a few modules that you are offering. And then after we do the mapping, as I mentioned, the next step that we go through with our higher learning institutions is to look at how then do you implement ICDL. If you realize that there are gaps in what you are offering, and ICDL comes to offer a solution for that, how do we go about implementing ICDL in the university? The first step that we will take you through is what we call qualification stage. It's just a 4-stage accreditation process, very simple. And this can be attested by a number of centers that are represented here. In the qualification stage, we are simply looking at ensuring that the institutions are actually able to deliver ICDL. Remember, to the quality that we are talking about. And the University of Kigali, Professor, I do believe we have already gone through that with your university, so we are ready to roll out the program. After that, the university goes through the application process. It's basically giving ICDL information about how you will be able to interact with ICDL, because you'll have even some people that would need to appoint as your contact persons with ICDL. Remember, Damien has just mentioned that the reason ICDL is where it is because we are here. We always do follow-ups with our centers to make sure that the key people that we need to talk to are aware of any changes that may be happening in our systems. And we do all that through this application and agreement stage. And then finally we activate your center. When we activate, we are saying now the ATC is ready. We have built capacity, because again, we will come there and make sure that your trainers are able to deliver the program as per the expectations of ICDL. And after that, you will be able to offer ICDL. It doesn't end there. ICDL will still be coming there to work with you, to follow up on what you're doing, to ensure that the quality that we talked about through this accreditation process is maintained. And I do believe, again, Professor Yala will attest to this, that we have been with AIMS. We go to the schools that are being trained in ICDL to see how the program is being delivered. So it's that simple to become a center. Then there is the biggest question that I believe many people will be asking. Why ICDL in terms of costing? This is how we offer ICDL. And we have ICDL one way. You could talk of ICDL and say, I want to give my students a 1-module package. That will come at a cost of $20. I will tell you, don't try to go that route. Because the moment you do this and students have taken 1 module, they will tell you, we need more. We need more, after they realize what ICDL is. We have another option that is available for ICDL, where we are saying as a higher learning institutions, and this is courtesy, our guest of honor, this is something that we need to mention here, that this cost that we have here is for Rwanda, because of the close collaboration that we are having with the government. We said the package that we would be giving to students, and in other territories at around $100 or $60. In Rwanda, it's already communicated to the Ministry of ICT that any student who is doing ICDL and will have access of up to 10 modules will be able to do that at a cost of $40. However, even better news is that if your institution is able to do numbers, we are talking about impact in society. That's ICDL. It's not money. If you are able to impact more than 10,000 students in your institution, please reach out to us. We will give you even better options in terms of pricing of ICDL. And here I can tell you it is possible that you can even offer this program at a cost of an average of $20 per student. I'm saying reach out to ICDL and you'll be guided on all these. Numbers, Dr. Kariste, 10,000 is not a big number. You can do it, yeah? So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is going forward. You are higher learning institutions and you are dealing with your students, but I do believe that there is a way we have seen other universities implement ICDL, and UTB being an example where they are saying all the students have to take ICDL before they graduate. And to me, there is nothing as good as that. As I stand before you here, I will tell you that I am a product of doing ICDL when I was in the university. And I would say the rest is history. Since I did ICDL, there are so many opportunities that will come up for these students. Their productivity will be enhanced even when they get to employment. I've been looking at, Professor, I'll use you as an example again. Your institution. You are now training teachers. What if these teachers were actually given these skills when they were in school, at their colleges? There is something that we all appreciate, that these teachers, by the time they are being trained, they are wasting time. They should be delivering training to the students, not wasting time because of attending the class. I'm talking of the impact that these people are supposed to be actually working, but now they are in class being trained. If they were trained when they were in school, they would be more productive and they will be able to deliver what they are supposed to be delivering. Secondly is the cost. I don't believe that you will find a center that will be offering a teacher who is already in service and they give them ICDL at a cost of $40. It's not going to happen. You will be paying more. So in terms of man hours that are wasted and also the cost implication, it's a lot. So as a university, if you could consider, or higher learning institutions for that case, if you could consider integrating ICDL program into your curriculum, it is the easiest way you can implement this program. Let it not be an optional thing where you are saying, if somebody has $40, you'll be able to train to take ICDL. Make it mandatory. It will be very easy for you. And I do believe some of the institutions, maybe the private universities that are represented here, this is also something that you could consider as an income generating activity. Even if it's $1 on top of what you are getting to ICDL, it's still something that you can get. Then offering the ICDL program to the faculty. Dr. Batiste, is good you're here. I know before ICDL there were some things that were happening in the university, and not just in UTB, where you could go to class and you find a professor in class scrolling a PDF. Is it happening? Is it happening? You know, one thing I like is that truth is not liked by many. Professor Robert, many people will not appreciate when you tell them the truth. If you find a lecturer in this age scrolling through a PDF in a class, you should know there is a problem. That PDF would have been shared with the students and they read on their own, instead of simply because they were not able to make a presentation like what we are talking about here. Get the content that you want to delay or to relay to the students, and then let them be able to attend, or you give a summary and then they can have the PDF with themselves. The other option is what Damien has just mentioned. The government of Rwanda has really come on board to embrace technology. And it is clear that all the civil servants, I don't know, as lecturers, as principals of different institutions, you are also civil servants. Yes? Yes? You will be required to do ICDL. Unfortunately or fortunately. So what we are saying is, why don't you as a higher learning institution tap into this opportunity that is there, supporting the government implement its vision of ensuring that we are talking of people who are actually well equipped. But I will still go back to the first item where I am saying focus on the learners who are in your institutions before even thinking about supporting other people outside. And with that, I want to tell you, ICDL is the way to go. Not because I'm working with ICDL, but because I've seen it take me where it has taken me. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the fun part of the program, which is our panel that will be taking place in just a second, where they'll be sharing best practices and lessons learned. First person I'll call up is Christine Uzamukunda, who's Director of ICT at Rwanda Management Institute. Christine, please come forward. I'll also call up Professor Calixto Cabera from UTB. Professor. And also Dr. Jean-Baptiste Mbanza Wugabo from the University of Kigali. All right, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Now, I'll just go ahead, ask a few questions, and then from there on we'll open the questions to the floor, where we'll have a Q&A session. First, would you please share, any of you, please feel free to answer the question. Would you please share your experience on the implementation of ICDL at your institution, respective institution? What would you say the impact has been to the staff and students in general? Please keep in mind that we have 3 minutes each for each speaker. You have microphones right next to you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Professor Cabera from the University of Tourism, Technology and Business Studies, UTB in short. I'm the Vice Chancellor. Our experience with ICDL, it started in 2017. That is the time we were in touch with ICDL Africa. And we have gone through the process of discussing how ICDL can be integrated in our ICT skills module that we used to have. So after assessing, we found out that ICDL can replace fully the ICT skills module we were offering to students. So we started by discussing with ICDL how we can organize the TOT for our staff. And in the first batch, we trained 14 lecturers to be the champion of this new program. And you know, UTB has 2 campuses, Kigali and Rubavu. So the 14 was spread among those 2 campuses, 10 in Kigali and 4 in Rubavu. Then we started also informing the student that this module will be changed, and we integrated, we reviewed our curriculum, and it was integrated. And the number of hours we used to have for ICT skills was 60 hours for the module, but we expanded it to 100 hours for ICDL skills. The beginning, of course, was not too easy because, you know, there are some barriers, especially from individual people to go to do extra mile, but also a small fee related to certification, but also barriers related to organization. You know, sometimes in terms of thinking, you know, in terms of people, the processes, you know, people have some barriers. But we championed the idea, and we managed to convince members that this is the way to go. Based on the requirements, as Maina has mentioned, and the CO ICDR, the market was demanding a lot in terms of students graduating with minimum skills related to IT applications. So the decision was adopted by organs of the university, and we started its implementation. The first batch graduated in 2018 with all the graduates in that year. 1,207 graduated with their degree, plus also ICDR certification. Then since that time up to now, we have so far trained 5,850. And we are committed towards the end of this year, by October, to do 7,250. That's the commitment we have made with ICDR Africa, and we remain only with 1,335 towards October. So you understand that this has made a big impact. Currently, our students who are graduating, when they go to the labor market, they don't sit for ICT exam. They are already certified, they are capable of using this. And a lot of windows of opportunities have been opened to them, because currently, as we are not only giving opportunity to our students to work nationally, they go also beyond in the region as well as in other parts of the world, and they are using ICDR skills. So I think the most important impact is being part and parcel of the information society currently. And the other impact is for lecturers. Now all the lecturers, majority, I mean around 90% of our staff are ICDR certified. So we are no longer in terms of having a few staff being able to use ICDR skills on the market, but also the whole institution has adopted to be part and parcel of the information society. So briefly, I think that is the impact ICDR skills has made, not only for our students to be able to be productive on the labor market, but also to use ICT application as part of their daily life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Christine, do you want to take a crack at the question?
Thank you. I'm Christine. I'm coming from Rwanda Management Institute, formerly YAM. Many of you, I think you know the name YAM. As the mandate of our institution is to build capacity building and skills development in civil servants. So our mandate before was to train civil servants in management and human resource. Then with time, we integrated and expand to IT and then other other trainings like PMP. Then from that perspective is where we started working with ICDL in 2016. So ICDL came to us and trained our staff and other people that we are working with, and then they gave them TOT so that they can become the trainers. So experience working with ICDL for us, we are not working with students, only civil servants, public servants. With cabinet resolution that said every civil servant must have at least a basic digital skills. So we started working with them. Institutions comes to us saying we want to train. But the challenge came was they say, show us the module, because we train the workforce modules. So the content is word processing, spreadsheet, PowerPoint presentation, and then say, how can you train me on word processing? I know how to use Microsoft Word. I use it every day in writing my reports and other work. I use the PowerPoint presentation preparing my presentation. So there's nothing new you are going to teach me. Oh, I know how to switch on and switch off my computer. I know how to send the work to a printer. So that resistance come like that. But when we gave them the assessment test, and they see that they don't know. They thought that they know. Because after going through the training, they found so many things on word processing and PowerPoint presentation, also cybersecurity. Maybe for Excel, that was new to them, saying, okay, I'm not using Excel every day in my everyday work. But the outcome is very positive. They all highlighted that they have improved their skills in those applications, in computer, knowing how the device, knowing how to do work with the folders. So the outcome is very good, and we are getting the feedback from the trainees, which is very good. And then they like that ICDL. So far, we have trained almost 1,000 civil servants, and we're still getting them. And then from that, we are also seeing people from private sector knocking, because they have those successful stories from civil servants, and then now they are coming knocking that we want to train our servants in ICDL. I think that's our experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, to Professor, my next question here, before I open the questions to the floor, will be, what kind of feedback have you received from the institution which you have trained? Can you please tell us what they expect to change in terms of productivity?
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Jean-Baptiste from University of Kigali. Let me share the experience as the trainer. We started by assessing the needs that a student may require to ensure that when they graduate, they match their digital skills with the labor market. Also, there was a need to follow the ongoing digitization within the university, especially when we are rolling the e-learning and the platformization of various processes we have at the university. I had to involve in the training of students, the training of lecturers, professors, to ensure that they are able to perform well. But now, from the beginning, the issue matches with what the representative from RMI said. One will be saying that I did a bachelor degree in computer, I did master's in computer, so what else do you want to train me? Another professor will be saying, I have been in academic for the last 14 years, 10 years, 5 years. So what skills? But now, when you give them the self-assessment, you know, the ICDL is all what you are able to do and how you do it, not all what you know or you have had. You give them self-assessment, then you find that the outcome, you know, ICDL, to ensure that you have a competence, you need to pass at least with 75%. You found they are getting 45, 65, then they start saying, oh, what is this? So I tell them now, you see, now it needs that you need to revise, you need to ensure that you have a competence and you have a confidence that you are able to navigate. Another experience is on the feedback where I have been involving in the training of corporate people, financial institution. I got an opportunity also to train people from outside the country. You realize that in the basic, the first group of ICDL module, which is on the basic, intermediate, and advanced, the feedback is that those people in the corporate, they're saying that we are already using computers in our daily life. But when it comes on following for productivity purpose, you found that they are not able even to score up to the minimum required. Another benchmark is on the COVID time. The COVID time, we had to support our lecturers. We have to support our students. Now back to the lecturers. You found a lecturer is struggling for connectivity. He's struggling for sharing the screen. He is struggling for giving the feedback. They are used to share the feedback to students where they meet them in the class or in the office. Now going online, you found someone is getting trouble. So we decided that now we are offering the training of ICDL in 2 ways. Number one is a standalone, where at University of Kigali we have the School of Executive Program, where ICDL is among the professional courses being offered. But also we decided to streamline it within the curriculum, that is integration with the curriculum. Now we're having an ongoing review which is going to cater for integration of ICDL to ensure that every student who will be graduating from University of Kigali graduate with the program of which you have enrolled in plus ICDL certification. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'll open the questions to the floor now. If we can have someone go around with the microphone so we can pass on the microphone to whoever has a question. Feel free to ask a question to our esteemed panel. Any question? We have a question at the back.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this event. It's very important to learn about ICDL and how it's the interventions in academic institutions. I'm Sylvie Mucho. I'm the acting Vice Chancellor of Rwanda Polytechnic. My question goes to the Vice Chancellors. You make sure that every student who graduates has the ICDL certificate. What is the support system that exists to make sure that happen at the university? I'm sure you have to complete and graduate and pass through many assessments. So how do you make sure that that happens? What's the support system available at the institution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chancellor from Polytechnic, Rwanda Polytechnic. At the beginning, we started by making sure that we support only the graduating class. And we, at the beginning of the year, we know the number of people will graduate. Then we set up a system. You know, I told you that we had around 14 certified lecturers able to impart skills, ICT skills to those students. So we arranged classes in groups, different groups, so that they can add on the existing ICT skills. Actually, basically, we're teaching around 4 modules, but ICDR is all about 7 modules. And we went through all those modules for all the students, divided into different groups. And we were able, you know, graduation doesn't happen in one day. It is prepared over the year. So over the year, we prepared those people, and they passed through, and they did the ICDR examination, and they passed it at the required rate. So now, currently, in UTB, ICDR is part and parcel of the modules they have to go through. And that is done from first year. At the entry point, the first module they have to pass is ICDR module. Why? Because ICDR module is helping students to navigate through all the digital skills that are required and used at the university. You know, the whole life at university is digitalized. From entry point, no, from the time you make your application, you can do it online. So if you can do it online, there is need that a student be comfortable and conversant with computer literacy. So the first module is ICDR. They go through 100 hours through those different skills, those modules. Then by the time they go to other modules, they are capable of navigating, using online, checking online, getting information from registrar office, examination office, from the lecturer online. And by the time we were teaching online also during COVID, it made the things mandatory by themselves, because a student was obliged to use those skills. And currently, even the payment, the policy we have adopted is paperless policy at UTB. They pay through the bank. Our bank accounts are connected to our banks, and the student pays and they upload their payment slip through online. All those, the normal life of a student is requiring a student to use those skills. So nowadays it is no longer a problem for a student to understand it. It is done as if this is part and parcel, the requirements a student has to fulfill before he or she graduates. Thank you.
All right. We have about 10 minutes left for this session. Any more questions? I saw another hand that was raised. There you go.
Thank you very much, moderator, and everyone in the house. I just have two concerns to pose to our panelists. I'm just triggered to know, are there records been made for both pre and post sessions to weigh on the performance of any runner in ICDR? If yes, how is that pace going to be maintained? That's one. Two, if this is one of the certificate people will now exit with, is it free? Is the cost now at the institution level? Do you now want the students to pay the other incurred cost. Because at the end of the day, if it's one of the professional certificate to go out with, one need to know. And I don't know whether there is awareness on people now, like beneficiaries of the program, what it needs to be done from them. Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Christine Mutes is my name. Division Manager in charge of accreditation, standards and qualification framework at Higher Education Council. Thank you.
Feel free to answer any of the three of them.
Thank you. Dr. Jean-Baptiste from University of Kigali. The cost is not free when a participant opt to go for standalone program. As I mentioned, there is two ways of implementing at the university level. Number one was to have it as a standalone program where any student can register or enroll to do ICDL. There is a flexible cost for the student, which is $60 for us. Why we choose to give this offer is to motivate the students. But when is someone from outside, we charge them $200, even if they are studying with the student of the university. This gives a room for a student now to know how flexible the university is to ensure that they get that certification. Another option is of streamlining within the curriculum, of which we are not yet to decide how much a student will be doing, because he will be doing that module within the curriculum and within the program he's following or she's following and she has paid for. I think I've made it clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question from?
Excuse me. Maybe let me share about the question. You asked also about the records of the student. The records are available even in the system. They can be obtained at UTB or even at ICDL. They have all those records for each individual person who passed the exam. In the case of UTB, we charge only $50 for our student. Actually, that is almost the cost of certification. They mentioned 40. We charge 50. We add 10 for the lecturers who go through this. But when it is a private candidate from outside, it's charged with 200. If it is an alumni from UTB, we charge 120. Thank you. We have that differentiation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last question from the other question at the back.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Swana Claude. I'm the Vice Chancellor of ULK, Kigali Independent University. My question goes to the presenter, the CEO, and also Peter Miner. The standard exam of the ICDL, if the program is not integrated in the curriculum of a university, how is the process of the exam? That is question number one. Then the question number two, as the ICDL management, do you allow or do you recommend universities to incorporate the ICDL modules in their academic programs? If it is accepted, how will we separate now the knowledge of an academician and the certified student? Because a student will graduate with two options, a degree and a certification. Is it done at the same time at the graduation, or they just graduate with their degrees and then later they are given their certificate for the ICDL. I'm asking this on behalf of the management because we also want to adapt to this, and we want a way forward. And the last one is, if a university is charging 200 for a private student, another one maybe 150, because we know for a professional qualification and a certification, for CPA, ACCA, there are some standard costs whereby an institution may not exceed, so that it may not be a burden to the student. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Free to answer. Any of the panelists?
I think the question has been addressed to Maina and to the CEO of ICDL, even though I have some piece of answers. Thank you.
Do you want to?
Okay, let me talk about the graduation of a student with a degree, at the same time with a certificate. Actually, the student, they are supposed to graduate with their degree, their program they have chosen to study. But beside, we add that certification as a proof of professionalism in using ICT skills. Thank you.
Our approach is to offer flexibility. ICDL is a modular program, and the reason for that is to allow flexibility to the institution to integrate ICDL in a way that best suits the way you structure your organization and the delivery of your academic program. In the last year, we introduced e-learning into our offer at no extra cost. So there's the flexibility to offer a blended approach, so you can mix classroom-based training with use of e-learning by the students. Very often with the first module, when they're starting, there would be more classroom support and more tutor support, but as they progress through the program, they can rely more on e-learning. So you can develop a solution that is a mix of tutors with e-learning, running workshops. You progress through the program module by module. So apart from the e-learning, we have what we call diagnostic assessments. So again, this is all on the Skillsbox platform. So the student goes through the diagnostic assessments, which covers the entire syllabus of the module, say spreadsheets. It will help them understand what they know and don't know. They can then focus with the tutor or with the e-learning in developing those skills. They can take the diagnostic test again, and if they're up at a high level, they then know that they're ready for the certification test. Once they take the certification test, then they've achieved that module. And they can progress module by module. So again, you can think about, if they're year one students, which modules do you want to focus on? Will they do all of the modules in year one, or will they do some in year two? How you manage the awarding of the certificate depends again on your approach to graduation ceremony, but what we are keen on is to ensure that even somebody who doesn't complete an academic program, if they've progressed through ICDL, then they will still achieve something. So they're not leaving you with nothing. If they've passed the spreadsheet module, the word processing module, they can achieve an ICDL certificate that recognizes that achievement. We've also introduced digital badging and digital certificates. Again, it's a new trend in education and around micro-credentialing. So as soon as they pass one module, they'll receive a digital badge, which again is part of building their employability profile. If they're a LinkedIn user, they can post it on LinkedIn. And similarly with the certificates, they also have access to a digital certificate. So you can still have a traditional graduation ceremony and award a paper certificate, but actually as they progress, they'll also get a digital certificate and digital badging. The main reason for all of these approaches is to offer that flexibility. So yes, you can learn from UTB or University of Cali and say, okay, we'll do it that way, Or you can talk internally and say, okay, what's the best way of doing this? So you have that flexibility.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm hearing from the powers that be that I have time for maybe one or two more questions. So do we have someone else with a question in the audience? We have time for one more or two questions. Question here.
Thank you very much. My name is Guillaume. I'm the acting principal for the College of Agriculture, KEVM. And my question goes to the VC. Could you give us a picture of before and after you implemented the program at the level of your institution? What have you seen as a transformation? And today you could also help us understand exactly what are the gains at the institutional level, and perhaps also, which is much harder perhaps to quantify at the individual or student level. Thank you.
Any of the three experts, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of transformation, there is much to say. Since the time we adopted this ICDL as part of the requirements for teaching at UTB, but also for all the graduates from certificate, diploma, and degrees. First of all, in terms of lecturers, it has been very easy to support our students since the time we went through online teaching, because everybody is comfortable with navigating through different systems that we are using. And as I told you, the whole academic life at UTB is online. From the time a student register up to the time a student exit, the normal life, all the requirements, anything that they need, they use these digital skills. And our systems through our MIS are compliant with those ICT skills. So in terms of staff, all are able to teach and to support the student and to exchange with student and in conducting research using these digital skills. But for the student, the perception also on the labor market is very positive. You know, our student mandatory, they have to do industrial attachment for 6 months. They spend 6 months in the industry. And positively, the workplace, the supervisors at the workplace, they are really very conversant with what students can do. And currently they are competing on international market. You have probably heard about Qatar market, about Dubai market. Everything is done online. The interviews online, the application online. So this helps the student to navigate through all the system to use their skills acquired at UTB, basically based on that environment they have gone through. So practically the transformation is very big, the impact is very big, and everybody is happy about that. And nobody is complaining about that certification, as well as the fee. We have applied the small fee because it is discounted. If you ask Maina, for instance, how much he has paid to go through ICDL, he will tell you around 3,000 to get the certification. But in Rwanda, thanks to the government, it is discounted, and also we discounted for our students. We are teaching them not for money, but for the skills they have to go out with. Thank you.
Do we have one more question on the floor? We have a question on the left.
Thank you. Claver Rutayisire. I'm the principal of the College of Business and Economics in University of Rwanda. My question is a little bit general. Looking for a big institutions like the University of Rwanda having 6 colleges, how do we formulate, or how do we have the same kind of modules, or because the students are going into different directions? The ones in, for example, business will not necessarily need the same training like the one in social sciences, for example. Is there any flexibility into the suggestion of those kind of modules? Thank you.
So again, I would emphasize flexibility behind our approach. So as I showed you earlier, we have 3 programs. There's more than 20 modules. When Peter was talking about pricing, he talked about a 10-module profile pack, and that's any 10 modules. So we have a type of credit system on the platform. So you're deciding which modules you're allocating to the students. So generally, we would recommend that all students will do some of the workforce modules, so there's a consistent base of digital skill. And then you can adapt to suit different faculties. So as you say, if you have business students, maybe focused on finance, their needs are slightly different from business students focused on marketing. And you can decide then some will do digital marketing, e-commerce, some might do financial spreadsheets, data analytics. If you have engineering students or whatever, again, you can adapt. So we would say, yes, there's a common base of skills that they should all engage with. Everybody should understand how to use word processing, PowerPoint, spreadsheet at a basic level. Beyond that, you have that flexibility to adapt. So certainly, everybody leaving your institution, the ICDL certificate looks the same until you read all of the modules listed. So we don't say they all have to be identical. We call it a profile certificate, so it shows whichever modules the student has completed. So you can adapt the solution to suit the needs of the organization.
Thank you, Damien. One more question. One more question. Anybody with a question at the back, maybe? We have a question here.
Thank you very much for the presentations and the discussion we are having. As now, this certificate is going to be compulsory, just to get a job. This is, I've been told, if you go to public service, they will ask you this certification. How can we make it compulsory? Now we're sitting here as people from high learning institutions. I think this is why they have called us. How can we make sure that when students they leave the institution with a degree, with a diploma, they have at the same time a certificate? So I think in that way, it will be good for them. They will not be requested or go back to learn and to have these digital skills. According to what I have understood, it is a learning tool, so which can, even when they are studying, it helps them to achieve what they have to achieve. So this is where I am asking myself, and maybe the question is for all of us: how can we make sure that when they leave the university, the institution, they have at the same time that certificate? Secondly, without caring if I am doing computer science, I think, yes, maybe you are doing hardware, software, but you need soft skills also. So I think there is no contradiction. As we have requested high learning institutions to conduct a test of English proficiency for students, just to measure their level. And then if you are in level 1 or in level 3 or 5, you are not going to take the same package. So maybe we can also start by that. And as my question will be, this is going to go to the ministry. How can we teach our kids when they are still in secondary? Just having some skills. Because all of them, they have smartphones, but they don't know how to use them. So I think also it is digital literacy, is e-literacy, but I think there is a minimum from maybe senior 4, senior 5, senior 6, to make sure that they have a minimum. So when I'm talking about this issue of integrating and make sure, then there is a possibility to harmonize the cost across all high learning institutions. And you are not going to put a big burden to the student if they are learning through internet, through whatever. So I think also we have to look at that and see how we can integrate these digital skills in our learning system. I submit.
Thank you. Anybody wants to go ahead?
Thank you. I think there is 2 ways of which we can ensure that this kind of harmonization and integration is adopted. Since all higher learning institutions in most a module of introduction to computer system or introduction to ICT is within their respective curriculum in year 1, this can be recommended as a mandatory module to undertake before any other module, because following the current running approach where we are adopting branded mode, where we are adopting paperless in various institutions, a student required to request a service, he needs to follow the procedure of submitting online. A student needs to submit assignment, has to go through e-learning, because class handouts are no longer because e-learning platform. So my suggestion, which is the recommendation from my side, is ICDL package can be made as mandatory at the entrance level as the first module, but which can be adapted and of course to be able to include in the curriculum, review has to take place to ensure that we adapt also the compliance as per HEC rules and regulation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to compliment him, as DG HEC suggested, and thank you for the question, ICDL can also be adapted to the level of student at secondary school, senior 4, senior 5, senior 6. Maybe they cannot take all the modules that we are using, but at least up to the spreadsheet, the presentation, I think student can, because our child, like mine at secondary school, is already certified ICDL. Because I know it is very, very important for the development, his development in terms of accessing university courses or online courses or any access using digital skills. So for us, I think with the support of ICDL Africa, people can discuss and find out which modules are up to the level of those senior 4, 5, and 6. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think the audience here is from university. That's why I didn't get any question. So I understand that You are looking out for the students, but the government is looking out for you. Hello? So for the lecturers, your staff, all of you. Let me give you an example. You can see from our place of work, the IT guys are learning up and down, helping people for just a simple troubleshooting. Like my computer is not connected to the printer, I have to call IT guy. And then you wait like for 5 minutes just to come and connect for you a printer. So, and then if you can have these simple skills, troubleshoot just. A system or an application on computer is stuck, and there is a way to use the task manager and shut down. So please, the head of universities, think about training your staff, your lecturers in these simple skills of computer. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm being told I can stretch this to 1 or 2 more questions, or anyone else with a question. We have a question here on the left.
Thank you very much. My question is on what is the costed? Is it the training or the certification? And that I link it with the copyright. What if those that have been trained within their institution adopted these modules into their own curriculum and deliver them, since they have been delivering ICT programs? Isn't there any sort of agreement? Or I studied at the university and I'm using that knowledge to teach my students, and there is no follow-up that I'm using the content maybe that I got from where I studied. So if I have done ICDL and then I use that knowledge, I teach my students. So what are we looking at? Are we looking at the certificate or the skills?
Thank you very much for the question. Let me start by the last one, the last part of the question. Certification is obtained because you have got the skills. And this is the KPI that is tested. And for you to be able to teach, you need to be also certified teacher of ICDL. You need to go through a TOT training for you to be able to train. It is not only having a certificate that you are able to teach. No, you need to be certified by ICDL. So all those our lecturers are the ones who have been certified by ICDL, that they are capable to deliver those skills. And ICDL is the one to see whether they during the exam they test all the modules from module 1 up to module 7 or up to 10, depending on what you took. So they verify whether the skills related to that module, at least if you have at least a minimum of 75% of the skills required. That is the time they give you that certificate. If you don't reach there, no certification, meaning that they are not related skills that you were supposed to have at the end of the day. So that is the answer. The first part of the question, maybe I didn't get it very well.
About the copyright and whether the cost is on the training or the certificate. And probably this is, yes, I may go through the training, get certified, but how I use that knowledge after I've been trained, I would equally train people to that level. So the question is, us as consumers or intended or potential consumers, I think the discussion is on how do we reach the big mass with less cost.
Without doubt, certification is key to the success of ICDL. What we've seen, and everybody has seen over the years around the world, is training without certification doesn't always work. So the certification is the measure of the quality of the training. It's a measure of the learning of the student. It's the language that you can communicate that you have digital skills. Every employer across the world has had the experience of somebody submitting a resume and saying, yes, I can use Excel, I can use Word. And then the person comes, and on day one they realize, no, the skills are not there. So what ICDL has done around the world is give a quality mark that says, if you have ICDL certificate, then it's independently validated by us that you actually have the skills. But what you're paying for is not a piece of paper. You're paying for that quality assurance globally that says, yes, the piece of paper has a value because it proves that somebody has the skills that they suggest that they have. And you cannot separate the certification process from the training process. Certification starts before the training, because certification is defining what are the outcomes that are going to be measured. And when you define the measurement points, that's your curriculum. That's what you start at the beginning and say, we need to train our students in these areas because that's what's going to be measured. And if you don't measure the outcome, you're wasting your time. That's why I said all of the free projects across Africa, free content. There's no measurement. And if you don't measure, you don't get outcomes. And certification motivates the student because there is a day they have to sit in front of a computer, log on to our system, and prove that they have the skills. Certification is a motivation for the teacher. If you have 30 students doing an ICDL spreadsheet test and 25 students fail, who is at fault? Not the student. It's the trainer. So certification is what underpins the value of the process. Now, we recognize the challenge, the financial challenge, and the scale of what you want to achieve. ICDL can never, from our point of view, we can never give it to you for free because it's a service. We have to provide you with a service. And we can't solve the problem of who will finance it. Yes, if we have scale, the unit price can come down. But you also have to always think about not price, but value. Every student needs a laptop. If I came to you and said, the laptop is $40, would you be happy? Probably yes. You'd say, that's amazing. How can you have a laptop for $40? And you think, we're getting a laptop, but it's only $40. So you wouldn't say it's expensive. If you come and say, well, ICDL, 10 modules of ICDL is $40. How much more valuable than the laptop is the skills that that person will learn and the impact that will have on their whole life? But our problem is we're not a Microsoft, we're not a Google, we don't make billions of dollars selling software. We just do this. And we're not the World Bank. We're not an aid agency, so we can't solve that problem. What we can do is if we get scale, yes, we can deliver the service more efficiently, but we can never make it free. And we wouldn't want to make it free even if we could, because if it's free, it's not valued. Now, we can understand that you will have students in different, maybe public institutions where you say, well, we can't pass on the cost. So we'll have to work with you, figure out, well, how do we do this? We can't solve that problem, but we'll help you talk to other people and say, there must be a way. It goes back to that question, do you value the skills as much as you value hardware? You know, nobody objects to paying for hardware because they say, I can see it. With ICDL, you have to see what is being offered. And when you hear the examples, and you hear from the students, you see what that value is. And if you have 10,000 students every year in your multi-campus institution, University of Rwanda, and you come and say to us, we have 10,000 students every year to do ICDL. Can we get the cost down? Sure. Can we give it to you for free? No. So you still have a problem. You have to talk to somebody to figure this out. I'm sorry, it's not me. I can't solve that problem. But what I can promise you is the value. And the value you won't measure in $20, $40, $60. The value to that person, even financially, will be thousands. A person will leave your institution and they'll get the job before the person who doesn't have ICDL. Now the delivery cost, of course, you're not putting a financial value on that. What's the delivery cost? Your staff time. You know, the Vice Chancellor talked about 100 hours of student. If you were paying somebody to deliver 100 hours of training, that's a cost. Is that worth it? You say yes. How many hours training or lecturing do you give for your academic program? What's the cost of that? Is it valuable? But somebody is paying. Maybe you're getting a capitation grant from the government. So the $40 or the $30 or $20, if you fixate on that, then you don't see the value of what ICDL will do. I know it's a problem that has to be solved, and we'll play our role in solving it, but we can't solve it ultimately. But don't forget the value. And some people have made the mistake and said, okay, we'll put our staff through ICDL, then we have great staff, and they'll just teach Computer 101. They'll do a better job because they have ICDL. But your students will leave without an independently, internationally recognized certification. They won't have the value. And my final point is when you think about what they leave with a paper that says they have a bachelor's in finance. The student that has a bachelor's in finance with no digital skills will not get a job. Or if they do get a job, they won't keep the job. Who is worth employing with a degree in finance who doesn't have digital skills? And how valuable do you think a bachelor's degree in finance is? Well, that value is diminished if it's not supported by digital skills. There is no finance person in the world using a pen and paper and a calculator. So why spend hundreds, thousands of dollars doing a bachelor's in finance and not spend the last little bit that makes it all worthwhile? Maybe not the answer you wanted, but
Thank you, Damien. Thank you very much. One more. Do we still have time for one more question? Yes? Yes. One more question. We have a question at the back.
Thank you very much. My name is Dominique Ingabire. I'm the principal of ITRC Karongi. And my question is about how do institutions embed ICDL courses in the curricula? I understand that before we teach anything, the HEC has to approve the curricula which is being taught. However, I understood from the Vice Chancellor from UTB that because of the importance of ICDL courses, they decided to replace all the ICT modules by ICDL courses. And I'm wondering if the courses which are being taught have been accredited modules by the regulator. And because also it was highlighted that there is a flexibility to change the modules which are offered to the learner, and I'm wondering how frequently one can change the modules which are offered to a student when, in the end of the program, one has to show which curricula they have followed before they are given their diploma or degree. Thank you.
Feel free to answer in any of you three, yes.
Thank you very much, Principal, for the question. Normally when it comes to curriculum change, there is what is called minor change and the major change. When it is minor changes, they don't go through the HEC process. That's what we understand. Okay. Yeah, because what I want to say, DG, is that normally we used to teach ICT skills, and it was a program with different modules, 4 modules normally. So when we adopted this ICDL, it was first of all a standalone module. Then when we decided that this be integrated to, it has to go through the process. It has gone through the process of internal module curriculum changes. Then it was adopted by the Senate. And once the Senate adopted it, we said that it is not a replacement of the existing module, rather a change within the ICT skills module that we used to offer, and we presented it as a change that has been made to the curriculum. Thank you. It has been presented to HEC as a minor change. Thank you.
Of course.
So we are in the family of higher education, and I think this is always good to put the finger on the right things. So when you say minor, so it has to be measured. So if there is no measures, this is where we sometimes face some messes. So I think if it was a course of computer for a certain number of credit, it is always good to share the information with your partners in this field of education. And actually I've asked, can we integrate this? Or I think it is better we keep this international certification as it is, and maybe we will accommodate that through our curriculum and make sure that if we present the certification as people who are doing accounting and so on and so forth. But let us say, if we want to change something, for the good sake and for the involvement of your partners, it is always good to inform. This is the only one thing. Because one can consider minor 10%, another one is maybe 40%. So then at the end, it can be a problem. So let us communicate what you are doing. It is good. There is no need to keep it in the Senate. And when an audit is coming, you find a problem. So I submit.
Maybe just to add an outside perspective. What we see in many parts of the world within higher education, that they approach it in terms of dual or parallel recognition. So it's not about changing the academic program that has to go through a very formal approval process and with the ministry. What we're saying is what the market needs, what employers needs is, yes, an academic qualification, but also in parallel a professional certification that recognizes digital skills. So we don't want to create a big problem for the academic sector in saying that, oh, you have to change your diploma or your degree. What we're saying is, in parallel, a complementary program is to say, yes, we have our diploma or our degree or our master's approved by the ministry or whatever the way it works. But we also recognize our students need digital skills, so we're offering ICDL because ICDL has been approved by the government and we're happy with the quality. And in that way, we're not mixing up different issues. We're not mixing up the academic approval with the ICDL certification. And it then means that you have the flexibility. So we had the question about which modules for which faculties. We don't have to complicate the academic approval. So you have the flexibility at the institution to say, the student will do an academic program approved by government, they'll do ICDL, it's approved by government, the two sit side by side, they complement each other. And if a student had a bad experience and failed their academic track, maybe they will still leave with something. If they leave with ICDL, they may not be employed as a professional accountant, but they might be employed as an administrator because they have digital skills. I hope that fits with your own thinking.
Let's please give a hand of applause for our guest of honor, Minister of State of ICT, TVET. Now, I'm sorry, you just got in, but I have to hand you the microphone for the closing remarks. Is that okay with you? It's very... Let me call up Peter Maina to give us a briefing of what the happenings have been so far before you got in, and then from there we'll move on to the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, welcome. One thing I would want to say is Honorable Minister of State is an ambassador of ICDL. And I was getting worried when I heard that she will not make it. Thank you for creating time for this event. We had a fruitful discussion. We are sitting here with people who can support the education sector in terms of making changes, in terms of the digital skills that our students would have. It was good meeting the Director General of HEC, and I think now she knows how she will support these people in terms of ensuring that they are able to deliver ICDL, even if it's replacing, integrating ICDL in the... Yes, actually I remember when I was talking about the intervention that we need more is in the education sector. Because these people, when they go out into the workforce, and you are now spending more time to bring them back to school to study, it comes at a cost. And thank you, Dr. Kariste. I think you gave me as an example in terms of how much maybe I paid. I will tell you, it was over $450 to do some few modules, not the entire package that you're seeing here. So, the people who will leave your institutions and they want to do ICDL after, that is the kind of problem that you're putting on them if they leave the education sector without certifying in ICDL. Honorable Minister, these people are willing to implement the dream that you had when you were in the Ministry of ICT. And now it's up to the state ministry to guide them on how that can be done. And I would like to invite you, talk to these are your people. And as we are doing that, we also discussed about some issues that are happening in the workforce. Christine here from RMI mentioned about the workforce that we have. Somebody, I like giving this example. At some point I went to a computer of an individual. I turned on the icons on the desktop, off the icons on the desktop. So this person comes and finds the computer is blank. They call for support. My computer is dead. Yeah? The computer is dead. You know the technical person will come and, sorry to say, I'm an IT person to some extent. The technical person came and told the person, we need to format the computer. Can you imagine the damage that we are having in our workforce? The data that was in that computer had to go. But before they did the formatting, I intervened because I wanted to see exactly what is happening in the workforce. Just a blank screen required formatting. Icons not displaying on the desktop. I hope that is not the kind of people that we will be releasing to the workforce from our institutions. Please intervene where necessary. Honorable Minister, please talk to these people. Welcome.
The fact that we're trying to, find a way and we can't, that shows the great attendance that this session got. And I'd like to start by there, thanking you all for honoring our invitation. It was the Ministry of Education that sent the invitation, but unfortunately, the Ministry of Education could not be here because of other urgent matters. But I'm glad that you all responded. Thank you, ICDL, for, I'm looking for Solange, no? Yeah, thank you so much for, organizing this and coming to us, both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, really nudging us to, again, call on universities and higher learning institutions to start looking at this as an opportunity to finally put out in the world graduates that are digitally literate. We've seen when, with the introduction of computers, remember when, even our parents or, other people, the ones that were in the workforce already, they had to go and take training on the side just to make sure that they are familiar with using Word, Excel, the basic skills that anyone needs. But unfortunately, until today, in 2022, we still have, graduates that are unable to use the basic tools, digital literacy tools that are out there. And it's upon us, the people that are educating these graduates, to ensure that we're actually equipping them with the right kind of skills that they need. And I think the example that Peter just gave is an illustration of what we know. I'm sure that spoke to many of us in this room. Sibjo, am I lying? And so, although I could not be here today, I know that you covered the many programs, I would say, that ICDL is trying to offer. And if you do have any question, or if you do have any suggestions on how we can, I'm talking about the ministry, I'm talking about HEC, how we can sort of make this work for your universities, for your higher learning institutions to really benefit from what they're offering, we're open. We're open to having that conversation. But most importantly, I think we've seen with COVID-19 that we cannot not invest in digital literacy, and it's required. This morning, the reason why I was not here, I was attending the launch of the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This country is on the move. The people that are to work or that are to benefit from the emergence of these technologies are the people that we are training. And we cannot be talking about the basic digital literacy when at the same time the same country is talking about the fourth industrial revolution. And this is what I like about ICDL, is that they also evolve with time. And I know that some of the modules that they have are also covering these. The AI, I hope I'm not lying. You know, these technologies. And the onus is on us to make sure that our students are exposed to these technologies, because these are the ones that the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution is looking for. You know, when it was launched and it was talked about, the first one was in California. The government of Rwanda had to send a fellow there, 2 fellows actually. But then, now that the center is here, there's no reason of sending more fellows. The fellows will be here, and it's our students that are going to benefit from this. I think the question here is, are we training, are we ensuring that we're training our students to be the ones that respond to the challenges of the future, of now and even of the future. We've seen the convergence of healthcare and technology, and we're looking at you know, vaccine manufacturing that was done in a record time. And when you dig down, deep down, you find that it's the convergence of technology that allowed it. You know, automation was the biggest thing. And if you talk to the vaccine manufacturers, they tell you today, all we need are computer scientists, people that understand computers, and of course, people that did life sciences, so the scientists. But the computer literate people are the ones that are being looked after. So I think this was a good session altogether, and I hope it's one of the many that are to come, and that we can all benefit from this. Nothing else to add, just to tell you that the ministry will always be here to support. And like I said, feel free to reach out if there's anything that you think we can be of help to you. Thank you so much.
Another hand of applause for the minister for being a trooper and making it, even if, you know, duty called her elsewhere. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our day and our session today. I'll ask our esteemed panel to please get back to their seats. Give them a hand of applause as well. Thank you very much to our experts. Ladies and gentlemen, lunch will be served on the rooftop. It will be in about, it's starting right now, but in the meantime, there's a video that's about to be played displaying what ICDL is all about. Roll the video. My name is Rita Sesheja. It's been an honor and a pleasure.